A lot of guys feel lost in their dating lives. They get inconsistent results with subpar women, and they can't explain why, so they just accept it as normal. But it isn't. Here's what's probably happening. You're putting on a performance. You're saying or doing things that you think makes you look more attractive. You copy advice that maybe worked for somebody else, but it kind of feels off. It doesn't sound like you. Maybe you have a great date, but then the same approach tanks the next one, and you have no idea what the difference is. You end up with women that you're not really that excited about. You're kind of just taking what's available. The problem isn't your tactics. The problem is that you're using tactics that weren't built for you. In this video, I'm going to talk about what you should do based on your archetype, and more importantly, what you should not do, and also why it matters. So before we get into archetypes, let's talk about why you probably failed already. Most dating advice fails because it doesn't consider the person using it. Things like go with the flow or keep her guessing, don't respond to text all the time. This is great advice for one type of guy, but for another, it looks erratic. It looks like he's unsure of himself, and it's unreliable. When your friend tells you got to be the strongest guy in the room, you got to be better than everybody else, you got to be alpha. I fucking hate that word. It's great advice for one type of guy, but for another, the competition is arbitrary and exhausting. When your sweet old grandma says, oh, you got to be kind, you got to bring her flowers, you always have to be there for her. This is great advice for one type of guy, but for another, it looks desperate, it's uncomfortable, and frankly, it's probably forced. The advice isn't wrong. It's just not the advice for you. And that's what this video is about. What is the advice that actually works for you? So, if you haven't seen my archetype video, go back and watch that. I will link it at the end of this video. I won't be covering all the details again, but here's the quick recap. There are 6 archetypes: the king, the warrior, the scholar, the lover, the explorer, and the provider. Each one has a core driver. Okay, these are the things that naturally motivate you. Aligned behavior feels natural. Women respond to it. Misaligned behavior feels forced. It's the thing that gets you inconsistent results or the results that you're not desiring. This video is not about identity. This is about how your personality fits into dating. One thing to remember through all of these, though, is that success comes from alignment through your personality. It does not come from individual actions or tactics or lines or tricks that you may have heard from some coach somewhere. Okay? So without further ado, let's break it down. Number 1, the king. These are the type of guys that have direction. They need structure. They build structure. They thrive in it. And they desire control. The biggest mistake that these guys make in dating is they become controlling instead of accepting the woman's individuality. So what should these guys not do? They should not try to control her behavior in order to feel in control of the situation. This is probably the biggest mistake that these guys make. Also, over-explaining your decisions. When you make a decision, you want to feel like it is the right decision. Stop over-explaining it. Seeking validation for your leadership. The idea that the woman is going to find you more attractive because you're such a great leader. This isn't always the case. But nevertheless, understand that your leadership is going to be essential. It's going to be a cornerstone of your relationships. So what I don't want you to do is get rigid when things don't go as planned. You need to be flexible. Dating and relationships and emotions are inherently chaotic. You need to be okay with the chaos. You cannot put a blueprint on something that can't go to plan. So, what should you do? You should make decisions clearly and calmly. You need to explain yourself in a concise manner so that she understands the direction that you are going. You need to lead interactions without forcing them. It is not your job to be overpowering. It is your job to nudge and to guide. You need to stay grounded when she challenges you, and she will. And you need to create structure without needing her compliance. Again, she is her own individual. Just because you value structure and you value having a plan and a direction doesn't necessarily mean that she's always going to fit into it all the time. And that's a big part of the leadership. So what does this actually look like? Let's paint a word picture. Things like she asks you where to eat. You pick a place. You don't say, I don't know, what do you want, right? That's too wishy-washy. You don't list 5 options and ask her to choose. You decide, and you're comfortable with that decision. That's it. That's the king. When you're aligned, she feels safe because she feels led. She feels a sense of certainty that the direction that you're going is clear and she understands where you're going, that you are in control. When you're misaligned, she feels controlled. She feels like you're overbearing, that she feels pressured and boxed in. Insecure women will tolerate this because at the very least, you are providing structure, but it's not healthy structure. So here's the key principle. Leadership only works when you're clear in direction and open to her as an individual. You need to have a direction and you need to listen to her. Okay? Because when you have a direction and you don't listen, you are a tyrant. You are saying, we're going this way and I don't care what you say. This is where we're going. That is the words of a tyrant. But when you lead without direction and you only listen to her and what she wants, you become a waffling nice guy. You have no spine. You sway this way and that way with whatever she wants to do, wherever she wants to go. This is not leadership. You need to have both direction and you need to listen. Number 2, the warrior. I have known a large number of these types of guys, and many of them go off to be soldiers at some point in their life. These are the types of guys who love challenge to the point where they almost obsess over it. They're always taking action, and they're always trying to prove their capability. The biggest mistake that these guys make is they become combative instead of polarizing. Women like polarity, but when you push the polarity too far, it can create a very combative type of relationship where you tend to fight a lot. So, what should you not do? Turn every interaction into a challenge. This is tough for this type of guy because it's like being a hammer. And when you're a hammer, everything looks like a nail. Everything to a warrior looks like a challenge. And part of the problem with this is that you're going to create unnecessary conflict. You're going to create an environment where you have something to overcome, something that you're fighting. Okay? And this isn't good. This isn't healthy. And a lot of times you will confuse aggression with attraction. It's easy to be persistent and to focus on the attractiveness of being a persistent guy who's going after what he wants. But if you take it too far, it can become aggressive. Also, pushing when there's nothing to push against. This is one of the big problems that I find with this type is that if they don't have challenges in their life, they don't have something that they're working towards. There's nothing to push against. There's no resistance for them to overcome. There's nothing for them to fight. This is a problem because it makes you feel empty. It makes you feel lost, like there's nothing fulfilling in life. But the last thing you want to do is create that level of challenge in your relationships. So what should you do? You should channel your intensity into purposeful action. So something that you agree with, something that's worth fighting for. You need to use tension playfully, not aggressively. It's always, always, always critically important that when you are building tension, you do it from the perspective of playfulness. Now, you will naturally add your own aggressive energy into it. You don't need to add to it. Be bold without being confrontational. It's important that you are direct, that you channel that aggression forward, okay? But don't do it in a way that becomes combative because that creates drama, that creates fighting, that creates conflict that's unnecessary. And a confident, self-respecting woman will not tolerate that. So you need to know when to ease off. If you push it a little bit too far, that's okay, but know when to ease off. So how should this feel? You should feel assertive. You should feel confident and slightly edgy. You should be pushing those social boundaries. You should have a faster pace and you should be driven by momentum. You're going to lead through action, okay? And you're going to earn respect through that action. It's not something you demand. Women are going to respect you because of who you are, not because you asked her. When you're aligned, she feels excitement. She feels tension. Okay? There's a combative nature to your relationship that you bring to it. And this creates a lot of attraction. But when you're misaligned, she feels pressure. It's almost like she's in a fight that she didn't sign up for. The key principle here is that tension creates attraction, but conflict destroys it. So, real talk for a second, just a quick aside about the warrior. A lot of guys reading the warrior think, yeah, that's me. But if your interactions feel like constant friction, like she's pulling away, or things are kind of blowing up in your face, or maybe just nothing is sticking, you're not being a warrior, you're just being difficult, okay? There's a difference between polarity and conflict, right? So polarity pulls her in. The other one pushes her away because polarity is sort of the heart of attraction, right? You can have attraction without it. But you need to be honest with yourself about which one you're actually doing. So don't confuse yourself with thinking, oh, I'm part warrior, when you're not. You're just kind of being a dick. Number 3, the scholar. The core driver of this personality type is around understanding and awareness of the situation, as well as perception, trying to understand the situation and perceive it from different angles. He tends to be very thoughtful. The biggest mistake that this guy makes is overthinking. This is classic, okay? Overthinking instead of acting is a huge problem, because you're going to sit there and try to formulate your approach and try to figure out every single little detail, which is your natural tendency, and then the moment's gone. And that's it. And you'll never get it back. So what should you not do is stay in your head during interaction. This is a big problem that I see with these guys when I'm trying to coach them. And I've coached a lot because these are the types of guys who come to a coach for help, because these are the types of guys who are trying to figure it out. So my main advice to you is don't stay in your head. It's important to cultivate and incubate a lighthearted, playful attitude with women. You also should not analyze her rather than engage with her. Focus on that act and wait for that response, and then act on that response with her. Okay, don't try to analyze and figure out everything about her in the moment. Just be present. Engage without thinking about the overall meaning and trying to figure out every little detail. You can do that later. Trust me, I do this all the time. Which leads me to the next point, which is don't try to figure her out. You should be experiencing her. Focus on staying in the moment. Okay? That is where the attraction happens. That's where the magic happens, is when you are present and together and connecting as two humans. You can't do that if you're always overthinking. You also shouldn't wait. You shouldn't be hesitating. Stop trying to wait for the perfect moment. Like, oh, she looked at me once. I'm going to wait for her to look at me again, and then I'm going to go talk to her. No, go. You need to stop overthinking. Focus on the present moment. You could always overanalyze later. Understand that your analytical mind is it's your biggest strength, but it's also your biggest weakness. It depends on how you use it. What should you do? You should act on the things you already understand. So if you already understand, basic principles of going up and talking to a girl, like, go do that. If you haven't figured that out yet, take some time, figure it out. Because that is your strong suit. You're going to know things better than anybody else. The problem is you're going to be in analytical mode and you're not going to take action. You need to use awareness to guide, not paralyze. When you get stuck in analysis paralysis, that is a big problem. You need to focus on taking action. It is something that you are going to have to take conscious effort and intentionality about doing. staying present instead of being analytical. Again, be in the moment. Don't try to analyze everything in the moment. You can always do that later when you're home by yourself. And the last thing is, and I know it sounds trivial, but you need to trust your instincts. You already know how to be an attractive guy. You just have to bring that out. And it comes out naturally if you let it. When you stop being analytical, you need to be out of your head. So how should it feel? You should be observant. You should be aware of everything. You should be aware of, does this make me look attractive or not attractive? That's natural. You should be thoughtful and you should be perceptive. You should be the guy who understands the situation better than anybody else. Because that's what women are going to be attracted to. You're going to be measured and responsive at reading the room and reading the woman. Be calm, be attentive, right? This sort of indirectly leads to a slight sense of mystery. But women will love it because you're so attentive that it completely puts her at ease. Women will find this attractive because you are the most present and the most thoughtful and the most emotionally engaged of all the archetypes. When you're aligned, she feels seen and understood. Most guys can't do this, right? But when you're misaligned, when you are not present in the moment, when you are constantly analyzing, she's going to feel like you are distant. She's going to feel like you are passive because you're not taking action. And ultimately, it's going to feel like you're disconnected because there's nothing to respond to her actions and her emotions. So the key principle here is understanding only matters if you act on it. So you can't allow analysis paralysis to keep you rooted in place. So here's what you should be noticing right now as we go through these. The advice that hasn't worked for you probably belongs to a different archetype. That's not a small thing. That's the whole answer to why you've been stuck. We've got 3 more to cover. We haven't placed yourself yet. Keep watching. And if you have, watch anyway, because there are certain combinations where you may not be dominant in one of these other ones, but it may still play a role. Number 4, the lover. The core driver of this personality type is about emotion and connection and experience. These are the type of guys that tend to be ladies' men because women just naturally get along with them very easily. The biggest mistake that these guys make is seeking emotional validation. Why? Because these guys are very open about their emotions. They're very outgoing, more so than all the other guys. And as a result, they kind of want to get some reciprocity, but that doesn't always happen. So what should you not do? You should not rely on her response to feel secure. You are your own man. You should be secure in yourself, and you should be expressing your emotions in a way that is congruent with how you feel and not based on her reaction. Another problem is being overly invested too early. This is particularly problematic because you are so emotionally expressive that it feels smothering. Women don't get that sense that she's winning you over because you've already sort of won yourself over. Maybe you lose yourself in the connection. Maybe because you're so expressive and you're connecting with her and she's connecting with you, that you sort of lose sight of the direction that the relationship is going and what you should be doing because you're so enjoying yourself in the moment. This is exactly the opposite of what the scholar does, right? The scholar tends to overthink. You are so outgoing and so in the moment that you don't think really at all. It's more about experiencing the moment. And you may even seek constant reassurance that if she doesn't respond to everything that you do, right, or the way that you're expressing yourself or the way that you feel, that this is somehow a net negative, and it isn't. So what should you do? You should be creating emotional experiences for her. You should stay present without needing a specific outcome. You need to express yourself freely without attachment. You should be okay with expressing your emotions, but not needing her to necessarily respond to that. You need to maintain your sense of self, even when you're feeling very deeply. Your connection with her is not a reflection of you. And sometimes it's easy to get lost in that. So what does this actually look like? Well, maybe you're on a date. Conversation slows down. A lot of guys panic, right? They try to fill in the silence or crack a joke or check their phone, right? You need to lean into it. You need to ask something real. You need to share something, right? Share something about yourself. This is not performing. This is not a tactic. It's not a gimmick. This is what it means to just be present. Chances are you probably do this naturally, right? But if you feel insecure, right, then you're going to ruin the present moment. Okay. She notices the difference. When you're aligned, she feels a lot of chemistry, a lot of depth, and a lot of real connection because you are both emotionally expressive and it's easy for the two of you to connect with each other. When you're misaligned, she kind of feels pressure because you're so emotionally expressive and you want her to reciprocate. That also leads to neediness and emotional weight, which she didn't ask for or need. So the key principle here is that emotion attracts, whereas dependency repels. So be emotional, be expressive, but don't be dependent on her reaction. Number 5, the explorer. The core driver of this personality type is about freedom and novelty and experience. The biggest mistake these types of guys make is avoiding depth under the guise of freedom. They say, oh, well, I'm being free and doing what I want in life. And the reality is they're really just avoiding really digging into things deeply, whether that's relationships or it's other experiences in their life. These are the types of guys, by the way, who will probably have a string of hookups rather than like a more committed relationship. So if you are this personality type, what should you not do? You should not disappear when things get real. This is so key. Why? Because I'm this type of guy and I've experienced this firsthand. It's important that you are expressive and you connect when the time is right, because you're not going to necessarily be that consistent. That sort of flies in the face of exactly that sense of novelty and newness that you're looking for. Which leads me to my next problem, which is avoiding consistency entirely. You can't just be inconsistent with everything because it doesn't give a sense of stability or connection that the woman can relate to. It creates an uncertainty that eventually repels her. And you need to avoid confusing movement with progress. Just because you are going out on dates and having experiences doesn't necessarily mean that you are progressing in the relationship. It's important to have a sort of a king type of mentality when it comes to being goal-driven and have a direction. You can't just be all over the place. And I know this because that's what I struggle with. And you can't use freedom to dodge responsibility. You still have to do things and show up in a somewhat consistent way in the relationship. Otherwise, it's going to fall apart. She won't be able to trust you. She will not look to you as her guide, her masculine presence. So what should you do? You need to create fun, dynamic experiences. You can't let things get bland or you're going to get bored. And if you get bored, like, how is she going to feel? You need to bring spontaneity to the interaction. And there's a lot of different ways that you can do this. You need to stay engaged when things stabilize, okay? Inevitably, when you're in a relationship, things are going to kind of become monotonous. And, it's important not to get bored immediately. Allow that boredom to sort of manifest and be okay with it. And also be able to manage it, because you can take that monotony and that predictability and you can add things to it that are new and novel. And the idea here is to choose freedom. Don't use it as an escape. You can't just say, oh, well, I'm a free bird, so I'm going to go off and do whatever I want. You're not using it as an escape from the ways that you should show up as a man. So, how should it feel? It should feel playful and spontaneous and lighthearted. Like it is, if you are this personality type, you are the opposite of serious. Shifting pace, okay? Going a little faster, a little bit slower. Things should not be linear. There should not be a regimented process or progression. It should have a sense of uncertainty. The women that we attracted to you as this type of person are going to be the women who like that. The types of women who want stability, that want consistency, they're going to want a king type. You need to lead through movement and experience. So you're going to be moving things forward with intention, but also being focused on the experiences that the two of you are having together. You always need to be fun, unpredictable, and engaging. And this really should go without saying because this is so core to your personality type that if you weren't doing this, then you're not in alignment with your personality. So, real quick, an important distinction with this personality type, your desire for freedom can make you exciting or unreliable. The difference is intention. Okay? Intention is everything with this. When you're aligned, she feels a life with you is exciting and refreshing. That there's a lot of newness and novelty. There's always something new and different. It never gets stale. But when you're misaligned, she feels like she can't count on you. That you're the kind of guy who's maybe he's kind of there and maybe he's not, right? And it makes you feel shallow. You have a ton of diverse experiences, but you never really delve into a particular experience with any depth. So the key principle with this type is freedom works when it's chosen, when you choose it, but not when it's an escape, not when you're using it as an excuse to get out of the monotony of what ultimately comes out of a real relationship. And now the last one, number 6, the provider. The core driver of this personality type is centered around stability and support and responsibility. The biggest mistake that these type of guys make is they try to earn attraction through giving. These are the types of guys that will go out to a bar and maybe they'll buy drinks for women, right? They're very giving. They're very willing to provide and provide concrete material wealth or benefit to other people, not just women. So what should you not do? Well, number 1 is don't overgive to gain approval. Just because you're this personality type doesn't give you a free ticket to go out and say, oh, well, I'm going to go off and, buy people all these things, because the key is to be intentional about it. Make your value transactional, right? And I've seen this time and time again when guys, buy girls drinks for the express purpose of, oh, if I buy you a drink, then I'm sort of entitled to some kind of reciprocity, some kind of affection. That's not how it works. You ignore your own standards to be useful. I see this a lot with guys that are, more of the committed, like marriage-oriented type guys. They will provide everything that they can to their family to benefit their wives, their kids, whatever, that they neglect themselves. And the last thing that they should not do is lead with provision. Providing is not leadership. You are not a human vending machine. You are a unique person. Just giving things doesn't make you valuable. So what should you do? Each provide from strength. It needs to be intentional. You shouldn't need to provide in order to feel complete as a man. You need to have clear standards for your effort. Just because you're giving things doesn't mean that you should be taken advantage of. Again, stop being a human vending machine. Invest where it is reciprocated. So the people that appreciate and give back in their own ways to you, right? That's where you should be provided. And frankly, if you're a guy maybe who's married, right, and your wife isn't reciprocating these things that you're providing, that creates a problem. And you need to recognize that. Building stability where she can step into. You don't just hand it to her. So, perfect example of this, right? When you're going out meeting girls at a bar, the appropriate time to buy drinks is after she's invested, after she has shown some reciprocity, that she's willing to contribute to the interaction and add her feminine energy, that she's not just, another pretty face, that she's demonstrated herself to be engaged in some way. That's when you buy the drink. You buy the drink to make it more of what it already is. You don't do it as a bribe. And the same thing, even in relationships or marriage, like, just buying her flowers is not, you're not buying your way into a romantic gesture. You're not buying your way into her pants. Okay. You need to use your provision as a way that gives her the opportunity to come into your life. So how should it feel? It should feel grounded. It should be practical, and it should be sincere. Okay. It needs to be slow and steady, but consistent. This is the type of guy who, again, is the type of guy who can show up consistently every day, constantly providing. This is why this type of guy makes great marriage material. Women love these types of guys for that reason. And you need to lead through reliability. It is your role in life to be the guy who is consistent and is present and is there. Okay? And you need to be stable, calm, and dependable. It is that emotional stability as well as the material stability, when provided correctly and in a healthy manner, that is what keeps the woman attracted. There's a very important distinction. Provision does not create attraction, okay? It supports it. The provision itself, buying the drinks, giving your wife the house she wants, the car she wants, bringing her flowers, chocolates, whatever it is, does not create the attraction. It only reinforces it. If she's not already attracted, giving more won't fix that. You'll just feel used and confused, and it's not a good position to be in. So when you're aligned, she feels safe because she feels supported, because you're present, and she feels secure. But when you're misaligned, she feels like it's transactional, that you're just buying your way into her pants. It kind of makes her feel a little bit like a hooker. And that's not attractive. So the key principle with this personality type is that stability attracts when it is not used to seek approval. If you watch this far and you can't pin down which archetype you are, or you suspect that you've been living in the wrong one, that is a very common problem that I see with guys. You can't run the right strategy if you don't know who you are. I built a free assessment specifically for this. It tells you exactly why your approach keeps failing. It only takes about 10 minutes to complete, and it's more useful than any dating course you've ever paid for because it tells you exactly where your problems are originating from. You can get this when you sign up for the Men's Lab newsletter, and you'll get it immediately. You can click the link in the description. You are not just one archetype. You are usually a blend of one or two dominant and then maybe one or two secondary. So here are some combinations and when they actually work. So if you're a king and a lover, you will be grounded and decisive, but you'll also be emotionally engaging. She will feel led, like there's a direction that the two of you are going to, and she will feel easily connected. You will make the decisions, and she will feel safe in them. But she also feels that you're actually present and that you see her for who she is. This combination is rare, but it is attractive. You also have the warrior and the explorer. This is the type of guy who will be very driven, very intense, very seeking to overcome and conquer, but also spontaneous and adventurous. This is the type of guy that makes a woman feel excited and challenged all at the same time. You push her a little bit and also keep things unpredictable. She never knows exactly what's coming. Now, obviously, if a woman needs stability, this probably isn't going to be the best type. But for the women that find this attractive, you are unbelievably attractive. And this is the kind of thing that keeps attraction alive long term. So what are some combinations that may create some problems? And just a quick aside, it's not to say that these combinations are a problem. It's that this is what the problems will look like if you have a out of alignment combination. Any one of these combinations, any combination of archetypes can be both good or bad depending on how you show up. So the king and the warrior will be controlling and aggressive. Okay. This is the kind of guy who's not really leading. He's just dominating. Women can feel that immediately, and sometimes they leave, but some insecure women, unfortunately, will stay. This is the type of guy that, unfortunately, is probably susceptible to domestic violence because he is very controlling, but he's also aggressive. That is a very, very dynamic combination. Also, the lover and the provider. This is the classic nice guy, right? This guy he's very overgiving, he's very overinvesting, and it creates zero tension, right? This is the kind of guy that really connects well with women, but she's not really that into you and you can't figure out why. Or maybe the scholar and the explorer. And this one's mine, by the way. So, some of the problems that I face, like overthinking, right? Overthinking, and which leads to inaction. This is a big problem with myself and also guys like me. You see opportunities, you see them clear as day, and you analyze it a little bit, and you're like trying to figure out the best approach, and then all of a sudden it's gone. And it's like, I missed that one. So the point is, understanding your blend can help you stop fighting yourself. You stop trying to become someone you're not, and you start working with who you are and not against it. Most men fail because they copy advice that wasn't built for them. You've seen exactly why that happens. Here's the reframe before you go. The reason you've been frustrated isn't that you're bad at dating, it's that you've been playing someone else's game. And now you can know what game is actually yours. Success doesn't come from actions. It doesn't come from tactics. It doesn't come from lines that you memorize off of some AI chatbot. It comes from alignment with who you actually are. That's it. That's the entire game. My name is Ethan. If you're tired of conventional dating wisdom that just doesn't work, and you want to work with me directly, there's a link in the description. If you got something out of this, hit the like button and subscribe if you want more. Otherwise, I'll see you guys next time.